Good evening. You're watching The Big Story with Dylan Ang. I'm Olivia Quay. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to the Straits Times channel if you haven't already done so.
The total number of COVID-19 infections in Singapore crossed the 30,000 mark today. The Health Ministry confirmed there are 614 new cases, including 4 Singaporeans and permanent residents. Today's count takes the total number to 30,426. MOH will release more details later this evening.
From Tuesday, May 26th, residents can collect new and improved face masks. The previous 2 rounds of distribution lasted about a week each. This time, Singapore residents can collect their free mask over a 3-week period. The new reusable masks are more comfortable to wear and have better filtration qualities.
Collection counters will be set up at community clubs and residents' committee centres across Singapore. This time, residents can also pick their mask up from vending machines at any time in all CCs.
In other news, China is set to impose new national security law on Hong Kong and Macau after it said it would establish enforcement mechanisms to safeguard national security.
China intends to impose new national security laws on Hong Kong, an official confirmed on Thursday, potentially sparking new anti-Beijing protests following last year's often violent unrest, which plunged Hong Kong into its deepest turmoil since it returned to Chinese rule in 1997. Hong Kong media outlets reported the new laws would ban secession and terrorism, and all seditious activities aimed at toppling the central government or foreign interference in the former British colony. Attempts to impose similar laws in the past have met strong resistance. Activists argue it would erode the city's freedoms and high level of autonomy. Opposition lawmakers said this was the end of Hong Kong as they knew it. This was Tanya Chan.
Today, I think that it's the saddest day in Hong Kong history. It confirms one country, one system.
The Chinese official was speaking at a late-night briefing ahead of China's annual parliamentary session, which starts on Friday. Online posts urged people to gather in protest before Parliament meets. The legislation could also prompt Washington to remove Hong Kong's special status. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has delayed a report assessing whether Hong Kong is still autonomous enough to qualify for that status, awaiting the outcome of the parliamentary session.
Here to tell us more is China correspondent Elizabeth Law. Liz, a draft decision was submitted to the National People's Congress today. If it goes through, it paves the way for a national security law to be enacted in Hong Kong. Was this move expected, and what does this now mean for the city?
Hi, Dylan. Hi, Olivia. So, yes, I mean, it is not surprising that this move has come about. I mean, after all we've seen in the last close to a year where there were these very angry protests and the sort of rhetoric that was coming out of China. And I think most significantly in the last few weeks where Hong Kong was now trying to push through a national and a law that will make it an offence to insult the national anthem. And just earlier last week, we heard the local liaison office saying that it was their prerogative to interpret Chinese laws in Hong Kong under Article 22 of the Basic Law. So I think this is an indication that sort of paves the way for what we are seeing today. Now, to go back to the earlier part of your question, what does this mean for Hong Kong? So. Basically, the NPC, the National People's Congress, is, for all intents and purposes, a rubber stamp parliament. Whatever laws are being presented will most likely 100% get passed through. So they will debate it on Tuesday and Thursday, and on Thursday afternoon, they will now put this to a vote. After this is voted, the decision is now enshrined in the NPC, and it will go into Hong Kong's basic law in a 3rd annex. And this means that now Hong Kong is obligated to have to follow what some of this decision sets out. So it's a 7-point decision, of which I will not go through it. It is quite a lot of it. But one very key point that has a lot of people very concerned is that it has a line that says Chinese security organizations won't be able to set up units in Hong Kong.
Liz, how detrimental would the new national security law be for the one country, two systems model, and what does it mean for future Hong Kong-China relations?
So this is, again, a two-part question. How detrimental is it going to be to one country, two systems? It really depends on who you ask. If you ask Beijing, they are doing this precisely because they are trying to preserve the one country, two systems policy. Their interpretation of one country, two systems is to make sure that Hong Kong is as much as possible integrated with the mainland in terms of laws, in terms of the perspectives towards policy and the outlook to the world. But of course, to a lot of Hong Kong people, and definitely to the pro-democracy protesters, they feel that Hong Kong needs to maintain its unique identity and a separate identity from the rest of mainland China. So for the pro-democracy protesters, definitely this is not a good sign. Many people are saying, including a lot of analysts I've spoken to, that basically this is the end of one country, two systems as we know it. For mainland Hong Kong relations, well, certainly Hong Kong still is a very important city to China. In the speech when the NPC members, the senior NPC member Wang Chen was introducing this draft decision that is being presented, he did say that one country, two systems has been highly successful in Hong Kong, but more needs to be done. So clearly, to them, it's still very important. But I think tensions will get a lot higher between the people and the governing class.
Now, Liz, let's shift our attention a little bit. Also brought up in the NPC, China didn't set a GDP target this year due to the pandemic. Why is that significant?
So this is literally the first time ever since the formation of the People's Republic of China that there has not been a GDP growth target. So why a GDP target is important is because it gives the various provinces and the various governments and even companies a sort of idea how much or how well they need to perform to be able to meet the government's targets for the year. So it sort of sets the pace for everyone to get about the business. The thing is that this GDP for the last few years, let me just go back a little bit. In the early 2000s, this GDP exponentially just kept growing, double-digit growth year on year. And then gradually in the last few years, we've been seeing that this number has been going down. And of course, China is very sensitive about it because they do feel that, we are a strong rising power. We do need to try and keep up this large number. So last year, the number was 6.1. And so this year, a lot of people expected, before the pandemic, people expected it to be around there as well. But clearly, because of this economic shutdown and the global economic slowdown, this is no longer possible. And I think rather than try and meet an impossible target or try and put a quantitative number to it, what they have instead released is a set of guidelines and a set of goals that they want to reach. So which includes creating 9 million jobs, which includes more fiscal help for companies. And very broadly, they also said that they would try to support small, medium and micro businesses in the bid to try and prop up the economy.
Before we wrap this interview up, Liz, you'll be involved in the Straits Times askST at NLB podcast, available now. Tell us more about that.
Well, so that is coming from something that I've spoken a lot on here. So I'm not going to talk more about it. Viewer, if you are watching this, please just go click on the link and listen. It's basically about what I saw and what I did in Wuhan, as well as what lessons the opening up of Wuhan and the rest of China can offer to Singapore.
Well, thanks so much, Liz. That was Straits Times China correspondent Elizabeth Law. Her podcast is available on the Straits Times audio features channel on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
Questions continue to pour into the Straits Times askST column on what we can and cannot do in phase 1 of Singapore's safe reopening. So let's look at some frequently asked questions. First, if you're wondering if you can exercise at a park that's outside your neighborhood from June the 2nd, unfortunately, you cannot. The public should continue to exercise within their immediate neighborhood, either by themselves or with members of the same household.
Can my domestic helper go out and meet her friends on her day off? The answer is no, as foreign domestic workers are encouraged to stay at home and not gather outside. They can go out to buy meals or run essential errands, but must return home once they're done.
And finally, can members of the public wear a face shield instead of a face mask? Yes, you can, and even now during the circuit breaker period. The Health Ministry said that any masks, including reusable masks or plastic face shields, offer adequate basic protection for the general public, but plastic spit guards, predominantly covering the mouth, are not considered masks.
A more detailed list is in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube. If you have any other questions, send them to askST@sph.com.sg.
Autonomous police robots have been deployed at a foreign worker dormitory gazetted as an isolation area to patrol and ensure safe distancing.
They can be dispatched to attend to minor incidents, reducing the need for officers to be physically close to those under quarantine.
Fully autonomous robots have been rolled out to patrol a foreign workers' dormitory, gazetted as an isolation facility. The two multi-purpose all-terrain autonomous robots, or MATA, help police patrol even more areas in a similar duration, with human and robot covering separate roads at the same time.
So for example, because we do house PUQs here, that means persons under quarantine, so there is a sizable amount of people that's here. So sometimes they might, maybe when they queue up for their food, then they don't adhere to the safe distancing measures. So in this case, you can just maybe give them a verbal reminder over the MATA.
The MATA also plays a deterrent role to ensure individuals adhere to safe distancing measures when they see it on patrol.
The police patrol robot MATA complements our officers in conducting foot patrol and projecting police presence. MATA is equipped with cameras that have recording function, allowing the police to view live video feed and playback footages. This enhances our situational awareness and allows us to see what has happened on the ground. MATA also have a voice function, and the police are planning to leverage this to spread police-related messages.
The MATA can navigate on its own and has a 360-degree camera which covers any blind spots. A 2-meter-tall mast can be raised to provide a higher vantage point to observe the surroundings.
From the video footage from the robots, we are also able to detect any anomalies. So for example, during silent hours, nobody is supposed to be outside. We can alert the police officer of such anomalies.
So how did the dormitory residents take to this? RoboCop?
When the MATA was first deployed, definitely they are curious because it's not every day that you see a police robot actually patrolling where you stay.
It's Hari Raya Aidilfitri this Sunday. Muslims traditionally gather at mosques on the eve of Hari Raya, something that's not possible this year with all the mosques closed.
Several initiatives will be in place to help Muslims fulfill their religious obligations, including the live communal prayer, both online and on radio. A special Hari Raya Eve program will also be shown on Channel 5 and Suria, and will include messages from President Halimah Yacob and Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong.
Joining us now to talk about what Hari Raya will look like this year is Ustaz Irwan Hadi. He's Deputy Director of the Office of the Mufti and Religious Policy and Regulation at the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore. So Ustaz, what challenges did Muis face in accommodating this unique situation during Ramadan and for Hari Raya this weekend?
Yep. I think for Ramadan, as we know, Ramadan is always one of those very social and very communal month where Muslims will go out in droves, not just to help those needy amongst the Muslim community, but anyone for that matter. So we're quite used to that. We're quite used to social gatherings, family and friends getting together. But I think our community has been very supportive. They have been quite adaptive in the last 1 month. We see a lot of Zoom or Skype iftars or breaking of fast. So that's good. People have kept to their staying at home. People have taken the initiatives to make deliveries, orders for their family members or friends and loved ones. So we see how they are adjusting in this in this Ramadan. But for the coming Hari Raya, I think one of the challenge is really because Hari Raya is not just a communal affair, but it's also a very emotionally loaded period for families, especially for the senior citizens, where they look forward to meeting with their grandchildren, their great grandchildren, and just to have company on that day. I think that is one of the big challenges. How do we persuade and how do we actually coax and help them manage the emotional roller coaster that some of them are already going, because some grandmothers are already busy cooking, some mothers are already busy cooking, and they're gonna have to figure out how that food can be delivered to their loved ones also.
Now, Ustaz, on a personal note, what are your own celebrations come Sunday? A lot of video calls, perhaps?
Oh yes, just tomorrow, the eve of Hari Raya, for example, I'm already scheduled for a few live programs with the community, but with my family members themselves. I'll have one prayer session with my paternal side, and then another prayer session after my breaking of fast with my maternal side, and then during the night I will have further the session with Mufti himself, where we'll have a communal prayer on our YouTube channel, and then towards the end of the night, I'll still have another live, dialogue program with a few other religious teachers and social media influencers. So we find Hari Raya this year quite busy. More, in fact, it's busier than the previous years were.
Yeah.
I see. Well, Hari Raya celebrations, they typically last a few weeks. Well, when the circuit breaker ends on June the 1st, do you think phase one, the measures in phase one, do they provide a reprieve of some sorts for some, especially since visits, however restricted they may be, are now allowed to parents and grandparents?
Yeah, I think that's quite a big reprieve and relief also, especially for the senior citizens and aged community members, where they would actually have the physical presence of their grandchildren at least, or their children at least, to although we know that the regulations now is 2 per person at any one time. So regardless, at least they can be there, they can be physically present, and hopefully even when they are physically present, they will still, we have been advising our community members to take all the necessary precautions on safe distancing, even if you are physically present. So if you're unwell, or you should wear a mask. If you're unwell, you should even avoid going still to your parents or your grandparents' house until you are much better. And I think in the last few nights, not just me, quite a few other friends and religious teachers and even community leaders and also social media influencers have been putting out the message to our community members that, and even the media, mass media, print media have been advising our community that come Hari Raya, when the CB is over and we start with phase one, we will still need to be mindful of how we interact with one another. What are some of those social or rather safe distancing measures that we need to continue to maintain, just so that we can protect our loved ones. So the thinking is really, we do this not because we don't love them, but it is because we love them and therefore we do this.
All right, well said. Well, that was Ustaz Irwan Hadi from the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore. Ustaz, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Also making headlines, a cyclone that hit India and Bangladesh yesterday morning has killed 95 people and displaced 500,000 from their homes. The death toll was far lower than the many thousands killed in previous cyclones, a result of improved weather forecasting and better response plans. But there are fears that overcrowding in storm shelters will increase the spread of COVID-19 in these two nations.
American actress Lori Loughlin and her husband are pleading guilty for falsifying information and paying to get their daughters into the University of Southern California. As part of their plea agreement, the couple will collectively be fined $500,000, sentenced to prison for 7 months and 350 hours of community service.
Local radio station Go 905 has reversed its initial decision to deny a $10,000 prize to a man for a radio quiz. The station had deemed that Mr. Muhammad Shalahan didn't win the contest because it mispronounced the name of Spandau Ballet singer Tony Hadley. Displeased by the decision, Mr. Shalahan searched for Hadley's contact, sent an email to his manager, and later received an encouraging reply from the singer himself.
Now, I've listened back to the tape, and as far as I'm concerned, you pronounced my name absolutely correctly. Tony Hadley, you might have said Hadley.
And so this morning, after much criticism from netizens, the station announced on Facebook that it will award Mr. Shalahan with...
Well, those are our top stories for today. For more news and videos, visit straitstimes.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below.
Once again, I'm Dylan Ang with Oliver Quay. To our Muslim viewers, Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri. Stay safe, everyone.